Hey, Nerdadders! Richard here. I just wanted to take a couple seconds here before we get into this classic episode to thank you for taking the time to listen. Just as some of you probably did back in the day when this was released, 2022. Nearly on this day, November 23rd, 2022, within a week or so after Kevin Conroy's passing, Will and I sat down to talk about the man who was really and truly our favorite Batman. I think he will always be my Batman. I believe I speak for Will as well in saying that. So wanted to take some time to honor the man, the myth, the legend, his life, his career. So that's what you have in store for you in this classic episode. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll see you next week with our new episode. Enjoy. I'm Richard.
And I'm Will.
And together we're
The Irreverent Nerds. Bum, bum, bum.
Nerds.
Nerds.
We are here today. We are here today to talk about Mr. Kevin Conroy, aka
I am the Knight.
I am vengeance. I am Batman. Yes. So we are doing our tribute episode to Kevin Conroy. As I imagine many of you within the nerd community, if not all of you, already know, he passed away recently at the age of 66 due to cancer. He had not made that public until the news of his passing, but it was due to cancer, which is very sad.
Very sad.
And we extend our condolences to his husband and to any other family members or close friends that he leaves behind. And just a little bit that we've gotten to know of Kevin Conroy, the man. Obviously, both Will and I have known him as Batman for many, many years and have enjoyed his many performances as Batman in the DC animated universe. But over the last couple of weeks since his passing, we have gotten to know him better as Kevin Conroy, the man. So we're going to talk a good bit about that, as well as his career outside of Batman tonight. And Mr. Boyer is going to start us off. He's going to talk about Kevin's early life and his career up until 1992 when he was cast as Batman on Batman the Animated Series. But he did have a career over a decade before that, a lot of live action appearances during that time. So, Mr. Boyer, why'd you start us off, sir?
Mr. Richard. Wait, I should have said Mr. Best. Anyway, so as I will, aka cartoonist Will. Anyway, so we've both been trying to do research on Kevin Conroy. I was really interested in who he was as a person, as a human being, because he's obviously more than Batman. So I just, wanted to honor. I just wondered, who is this man? I wanted to honor him, not just his performance as Batman. So I've been very busy and haven't been able to do too much research, but we have his Wikipedia page. And Richard, chime in at any time if there's something that you've read or notes you've taken that might help illuminate some of this. But Conroy was born on November 30th, 1955 in Westbury, New York, into an Irish Catholic family. He moved to Westport, Connecticut when he was about 11 years old, and he had 3 older siblings. One of the interviews that Richard and I actually watched, he explained that he was much younger, actually, than his siblings.
Yeah, and by the way,
Yeah.
we want to put a big plug for that episode, because if you want to get to know Kevin, particularly, this is a recent interview, just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But Michael Rosenbaum, who acted along with Kevin in the Justice League series and I believe some of the movies as well. Interviewed him on his podcast Inside of You, and um, he has a live action like or live action a video of that on his YouTube channel. So check that out. Inside of You. So it's titled Batman Kevin Conroy Talks Anxiety, Traumatic Childhood, and Robin Williams. So check that out. Big plug for that. And just for the podcast in general, I had already listened to a number of episodes of the Inside of You podcast and thoroughly enjoy it. Michael Rosenbaum is just very genuine and just enjoyable host. And I believe he's interviewed some of his other Justice League castmates as well, but we particularly recommend the interview with Kevin. So
And yeah, I want to talk about that. It says here on Wikipedia he had a tumultuous environment in his home. Um, Now, Wikipedia just, briefly gives us the facts. Conroy's father was an alcoholic, once attempted suicide while Conroy was in high school, which is very sad. Um, that's something not the suicide part, but well, maybe. Anyway, that's something I can relate to. On the interview on the podcast, Conroy actually talks about his anxiety disorder that he got from his a dysfunctional family. His father was an angry drunk, and I also come from an upbringing like that. Not to say anything, you know. Things are going a lot better now, but yeah, I can relate to that. So much empathy there.
yeah, I think he added a little detail. I believe Kevin mentioned that like after the attempted suicide, and he mentioned that there was a lot of blood and that he was the family member, and this is him as a high schooler. He had to go. It must have been really bad. He had to go and identify that it was his father, and I think he may have had to bring him home.
Oh,
But yeah, he mentioned several times there was a lot of blood. I don't know if it was a slit wrist situation. He didn't get into details, but just that added to the traumatic experience. And this was, I think he was either maybe a junior in high school, something like that, maybe a senior at most. Yeah, that's a lot to go through. Like you said,
that's a
um,
lot. And I just realized, Richard, I didn't watch the entire interview. I watched a snippet of it on YouTube.
yeah, I believe they did have some clips that they pulled
Yeah.
out of it. Um, yeah,
So,
the entire thing is
yeah.
about an hour and 20 minutes long.
Oh no, I definitely didn't see the entire thing then.
Yeah, it's really good conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
Me
Kevin opens up a lot and shares a lot, and this is like I said, just 2 years ago. Um, so it's very recent, and it covers a lot of his career and his personal life.
I need to go back and watch that later after our recording tonight. But yeah, I missed a lot. I missed a lot.
Well, why don't you share some of this about his early career, like how he got
Yeah.
into acting and then just some of his early work up until he got into Batman.
Well, he moved in with a friend to finish high school, and after that, he was about 17 years old. In checking my notes here, in 1973, he moved with a full scholarship to New York to attend Juilliard School's drama division under actor John Houseman, um, where he roomed with Robin Williams, as we mentioned earlier. Um, he was also in the same group as Kelsey Grammer, and would have loved to have been a fly on the wall on that.
Yeah, and speaking of Kelsey Grammer, as part of our research for this episode, Will and I
Yeah.
went back and watched an episode of Cheers in which Kevin guest starred. I imagine he might have gotten that role in part because of his relationship with Grammer. It wouldn't surprise me.
That's true.
But yeah, he played a I think he's was supposed to be a member of the Boston Red Sox, and yeah, he comes in and kind of sweeps one of the women there at the bar off her feet, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. Danny DeVito's wife. I can't remember for the life of me what her name is right now.
I know I cannot recall off the top of my head either, but yeah, I was like watching him there. Is like, and he was probably around our age at that time, maybe a little younger, and it's like wow, like good looking dude.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah.
was in good shape too. Very buff at that point in his life.
We actually watched two episodes because the internet lied to us. So I think said he was in at least two. We couldn't find him in that one, could we?
Yeah, no, yeah, he was credited with an appearance in one episode, and unless he was in the background, we didn't see him at all. But
Maybe.
the next episode, he figured more prominently. So yeah, and there's also if you go to his website, Kevin Conroy's website, it links to a reel. I found it initially on YouTube, but there's a reel of his performances, and majority of them, like his live action performances, majority of which occurred in the 80s. Um, he did say like a lot of his live action roles started drying up in the 90s, and I think after he had a stint on this show called The Office, that was no, not that Office. But believe it or not, there was a British TV show called The Office before the one with Ricky Gervais called The Office, which came before the American version of The Office.
It
Uh,
lasted a whole 6 episodes.
yeah. So the very first one, Kevin Conroy played an American, obviously, which he is, but he played an American journalist, I think, in that series. But that was one of his last significant live action roles, and I believe he did intimate, and this is something I think that you wanted to talk some about. Well, given that Kevin Conroy is a gay man,
Right.
that there were sadly some roles that he lost. When it was discovered, and he did not come out publicly until very recently about that fact. But from time to time, people like producers or whatnot would, found out about that, and he lost some roles over the years. I'm not sure if that's the reason why. I don't know if you found any more in your research. I don't know if that's the reason why his live action dried up, but it may have had some effect, unfortunately.
I don't know, but I find that very sad uh, that he would have been discriminated towards. And I'm glad um, that's not what happened for his voice acting career.
Yeah, he's very prolific voice acting career. Which I'm going to talk about that here in a minute, kind of how that got started. Before I do that, do you want to talk a little bit more about some of his live action work back from the 80s?
Yeah. After he graduated in 1978, he did some touring. Uh, does it count live action? Does it count his career as in theater?
Yeah, I would include
Okay,
that. Like, yeah,
so
yeah, theater, TV, movies.
he toured with John Houseman's The Acting Company, and in 1979 he toured with Ira Levin's Death Trap. He moved to California in 1980 and landed a role for the TV series Another World and became associated with, well, I think that's TV,
Yeah,
but
that's I believe that's a
yeah,
soap opera, if I'm not mistaken.
cool. And he became associated with the Old Globe Theater. At the Old Globe Theater, he performed in Hamlet and Midsummer Night's Dream productions. Um, he also performed in theater pieces such as Ed Albee's Lolita and Eastern Standard. And that brings us full circle with what you were saying earlier. He lived during the AIDS crisis. A lot of people, maybe it sounds like friends of his well, they would have had to have been. He was going to funerals. He knew these people, and that must have been really tough. I can't imagine uh, how tough that would have been. on him.
Yeah, that'd be scary too, because like it I mean, I don't know how active he was. I mean, obviously that's none of my business, but not everyone who's gay is necessarily sexually active, just like not everyone who's straight
Right.
is sexually active at any given point. But if he was at all during that period, I can imagine that there's that fear of like contracting it yourself, and you're seeing your friends die around you, and obviously at that point they had, and even today they did not straight up found a cure. I mean, they're able to treat it a lot better than they could back in the 80s, but yeah, I can only imagine how frightening that was.
Yeah, definitely. And he felt, according to Wikipedia here, he felt so obligated because of all the funerals he was going to, seeing these people he knew passing away. He felt obligated to play a character secretly battling with AIDS on Eastern Standard. And that's they got a lot of humanity there to it, raising awareness for this disease, and just, well, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, and I'll actually I'm gonna I think I may end up using I'm looking here at his website and looking at some of the
Yeah.
photos, and they have a photo from his performance in Eastern Standard, and he's with a couple of other people I recognize: Dylan Baker, Patricia Clarkson, and there's an actor here that was in some Marvel movies later. He actually played in the early Spider-Man trilogy, but I mean that's not that important, obviously. But I just recognized a couple of the actors that he was in that play with,
Oh,
and
that's neat. Cool. What are the name of the actors?
like I said, it was let's see here. Let me find the photo again. So Patricia Clarkson, who's still active, seen her in several things recently. Dylan Baker and Peter Frechette, and I believe Dylan Baker is the one who plays Dr. Connors in. I believe that's his name,
Oh,
Dr. Connors
okay.
in the first. Well, actually, technically, but yeah, all three of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films.
I was waiting for him to become Lizard the entire time.
Yeah, that never did happen.
No.
Maybe that would have been the fourth movie, but that's an aside. But yeah, like you said, the more meaningful thing, like he portrayed someone who was struggling with AIDS,
Yes.
and this is prior to, now. Obviously, for him, it was much more personal.
Very personal.
I think we talked about this the other day. I know Tom Hanks portrayed a gay man who was dying of AIDS in the Philadelphia Story in the early '90s. But Tom Hanks himself, is straight, so
Yeah.
now he may have had some friends that went through that, but not quite as personal as if you face those fears yourself. Um, so yeah, I feel like that probably took a lot of courage um, to be willing to do that.
Right, right. So, let's see my notes. Okay, so Conroy returned to television in the 1985 TV movie Covenant and landed a role on Search for Tomorrow, another soap opera. He played gay lawyer Bart Fallmount on Dynasty from 85 to 86. So that sounds like, uh, even though it was just 1 year, it sounds like it was a lot better than that one episode of Cheers.
Yeah, yeah. Looks like a either he was looks like there was 8 episodes total that he was on
Cool.
in that show. And
So he was also series regular on O'Hara in 87 and the company commander on Tour of Duty from 87 to 88 before starring in a series of television movies.
if I can jump in a little bit on the Tour of Duty
Yeah.
series, he talked about that. Spent some time talking about that in the Inside of You interview with Michael Rosenbaum. He said that that series at the time was the very first television series to display the Vietnam War. There have been there I think there have been some movies prior to that, but there had not been a television series based on the Vietnam War. And he said that that show resonated with a lot of Vietnam veterans, and he shared a personal experience. He had a chance to meet some of them, and I think he went around and visited a lot of the veterans and spent time with them while he was on that show, and had several just very very powerful, very meaningful experiences. One guy in particular, because obviously you go into combat, especially something as messy as Vietnam, you have a lot of PTSD. I mean, to this day, that I
Yeah,
still see homeless guys out in the street who are Vietnam veterans, and they can't function in normal society because PTSD can be just very severe.
yeah.
You add to it other problems like exposure to Agent Orange and things like that, and it's a mess. And but
I can't imagine.
one of the places he went to where he spent some time with the vets, like there was a guy that they had been trying to reach, I think for years, and I guess the guy had never visited, and he heard that Kevin Conroy was going to be there from the show, and he finally showed up. This vet that had just been resisting all attempts at help, and he came and he opened up and shared, and just dude just like broke down weeping, and like everyone like came around him, as Kevin described it. Everyone came around him and just like gave him just a big group hug. And this man, it was like a breakthrough for this man. And just Kevin reflected on just how like he didn't necessarily expect that as an actor always, that your work would have that kind of effect on people, but that was very meaningful to him. Obviously it stuck with him, more than 30 years later, still thinking about it, that your work can have that, can resonate that deeply with people. And I was reading some in his interview, which I'll talk more about, but his work
Yeah.
with Batman has resonated in obviously different ways. It's not on the same level as someone who's went through Vietnam, but it still meant a lot to a lot of people, you and I included. Uh, so, but anyway, I just wanted to put that in there because I know that that series in particular, I think, was meaningful to him in the '80s, and to a lot of Vietnam vets as well. And if I get a chance to talk to one, I'll have to ask, like, hey, do you remember this series? Do you remember hearing about this? And because I was unaware of it until I heard that Kevin was in it. I was like, that's cool. It's cool.
Well, I think I'm done, except for Cheers, Search for Tomorrow, Matlock, and Murphy Brown. I think I'm done talking about his early life and career. Do you want to switch over to talking about his voice acting career now?
Yeah, yeah, I can do that. So let's see. According to just both some interviews as well as the bio on his website, he was he had never done any voiceover work, to my knowledge. Had certainly not done any voice acting work um, prior to auditioning for Batman the Animated Series, and he didn't know very much about Batman. He had not grown up reading comic books. He came from a very strict Irish Catholic family, or at least they just didn't have comic books around. Like they didn't have that in the home, and so he didn't grow up with that. And I think the little bit he knew about Batman, he knew from the 1960s TV show, with
Right.
Adam West. That was about the extent. And I'm sure he was aware of like the Tim Burton films. I don't know that he had seen them prior to auditioning for this, but I'm sure he was
Oh,
aware of them. But his main exposure, it sounds like, was the 1960s. So he was thinking that going in, at least as he has expressed it, he was thinking it was going to be something similar to that. And he mentioned that in the audition, and Paul Dini, and he was like, no, no,
Paul
no,
Dini.
that's not what we're going to do. It's much different. So they then kind of gave him a, which at this point, it's pretty cool that they, obviously it's indicative of how many people they had seen. According to Andrea Romero, they had already interviewed 500
Whoa.
actors by this point, and could not find the right one. So they were a little more open to helping someone through an audition. And I think he had been referred to, he had been recommended to them. I believe it's from someone who knew Andrea, a connection that she had. And he's like, hey, I know this New York actor. He's like, he might be a good fit for this. Why don't you give him a shot? So they got connected to his agent, and he's like, he came in and auditioned, and so, but they had to give him a kind of a crash course in the character of Batman, and just even down to like some of the psychological issues that he wrestles through. And apparently, like just based on that, like Kevin Conroy kind of intuitively realized that it kind of hit him, and maybe this was a benefit of him being a bit of an outsider to the character. He's like, wait, this guy is a billionaire. He's like well known, at least all around the city, if not the country. And then he dresses up in a suit and goes and fights crime at night, and no one recognizes him. He's like, so to him, he's like, it would make sense for the voice to be different between the two characters. So I think up to this point, no one had done that before. Like if you watch the Michael Keaton, he sounds basically that he acts a little different, but his voice sounds very similar. He does a little bit of a change, but nothing as significant as Kevin. But pretty much on the spot in the audition, Kevin decided to change the voice of Batman. He decided to make that different, and obviously that got him the part. When they heard his Bruce Wayne versus his Batman, and obviously in particular when they heard his Batman, they're like, yes, this is who we've been trying to find. So he got cast as Batman, and apparently initially, like he was trying even harder to make Bruce Wayne sound fake. Like as he studied the character more, realized that Bruce Wayne is the mask, basically. That's the
Basically.
mask, and Batman is more his real self. And so initially, like Bruce Wayne's voice was going to be even more high pitched and than it was apparently. But then when they did they actually had him go back and re-record the first 6 episodes and tone it, bring it down a little bit. So it's a little more reserved. It's still got kind of that playful kind of fakeness to it. It's like, um, but then for the voice of Batman, he said the biggest thing he tried to focus on was that it came out of pain. Like you have the deeper, obviously the lower register for the voice, but then there's just an emotion behind that. And I think this is particularly true. Like you and I both rewatched a few episodes kind of in
Right.
preparation for this. And the one that I watched was I Am the Night. And Batman, like it's one of the first episodes, like he's Batman the entire episode. There's not he's not Bruce at all. Like he's in the suit the entire episode. And he's just going through significant emotional turmoil, and it's just tremendous performance by Kevin. And you feel the angst and the emotion. In that episode, Batman he's just tired. He's weary of fighting crime. He's like, when is this going to end? I feel like I'm not making a difference, and he's about ready to give up. Like he at one point even throws his cowl down. I guess he had some backups because he wears it again later, but he throws his cowl like down off the cliff there in the Batcave. He's ready to hang it up. But Robin comes and Dick Grayson and helps to talk him out of it, and he pulls out of it, and he receives some encouragement, to keep going. Someone that he's able to help, and someone that tells him like, yes, you really helped me. But that episode is just a really good example of the gravitas that he brought to that character, and obviously he's done voice work for some other properties as well, but that's been his main gig both in acting and in voice acting since 1992. mean, just a rundown of some of the. I mean, obviously you have the Batman the Animated Series, then you have the feature film Batman the Mask of Phantasm. Then you have looks like the Batman Superman movie, World's Finest. This was a TV movie apparently. Batman Beyond, the new Batman Adventures, Superman the Animated Series. Yeah, a number of direct-to-video releases from the DC universe. He was played Batman and Bruce Wayne in the Justice League TV series, Justice League Unlimited. I mean, there's just one after another. So that's been the bulk of his career since '92, and from what I've gathered, he's very very proud of that. He has dabbled
Yeah,
in other things from time to time, but that's been his main gig, and so yeah, and that's obviously that's how you and I were first introduced to him and his work was watching Batman the Animated Series as kids growing up. I don't know if you were like me, like did you watch the episodes as they were coming out back in the day?
yeah, I did, and had some of the toys. Not a whole lot, but yeah, I mean, Batman was definitely an influence on my life. I remember, getting up in a vacation Bible school when I was 7 years old to answer a altar call, thinking, "What would Batman do?" So
Nice.
I like to retell that story because how hilarious it is. But seriously, I what would Batman do is exactly what the words in my head. But um, or the basic thought. Anyway, yeah, I did. Now the two episodes, I couldn't make up my mind what episode I wanted to review or rewatch for this podcast. Uh, I watched Dreams in Darkness and It's Never Too Late. I couldn't make up my mind. Dreams in Darkness is definitely a very good performance by Kevin Conroy. It's a very good episode in general, in which it it is probably the better of the two. There's just something about It's Never Too Late that gets me, but we'll talk about that later. In Dreams Dreams in Darkness, Batman is caught in a trap and he wakes up in a world in which um, his parents never died and he's happy. But he can't allow himself to be happy because he knows this is all a lie. It's actually the Mad Hatter who has somehow created a machine that has forced him to live in this reality. Uh, Obviously, by the end of the episode, he breaks free and returns as Batman. It's very bittersweet and a very dark episode because he actually commits suicide in order to break free from the machine in the dream. He lunges headfirst off of a tower. Um, and in the other episode, I think the reason why it just gets me is because there's just a lot of humanity in It's Never Too Late. I'm not sure if we have the time to get into that right now. Uh, but there's some religious symbolism, and I think what gets me is just the reconciliation between the two brothers in that episode.
Hmm. Yeah, I think for me, like it was so I know a lot of ink and audio and video has been spilt talking about Batman the Animated Series, but it's just such a good series. You know,
Definitely.
it was had more. I think it took its audience serious. Like it realized that kids could handle serious content as well. Like it didn't dumb it down really for kids, and like I find it fascinating, and I still enjoy watching it even now. And you know, now the physics and the animation is a little lacking But and then obviously there's guns firing all the time, but somehow you never see anyone get shot, which they couldn't show on a Y7 TV show back then.
I heard they had to fight for that. That originally they wanted them to use laser guns, but I'm so glad that
Oh
didn't
my
happen.
goodness. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Although there was like in I Am the Night, no, they don't they show the aftermath. They don't show any blood, they don't show the actual event of him getting shot, but Jim Gordon does get shot. I was like, wow, I forgot. Like someone actually got shot. And he had to go, he's in the ICU, which that obviously, and then Batman starts blaming himself for that and spirals for several days, and just about gives up being Batman because his friend has been hurt, and he's like, I should have been there earlier. I should have made it. And it's just, um, but yeah, just amazing series. But getting back to Kevin Conroy, the man, in our last few minutes here, I really, again, really do highly recommend the interview he did with Michael Rosenbaum. He just very, very generous, like really opens up about so much of his story, you know, and I think as is true for a number of actors, just as I've heard their stories over the years, like there's often a good bit of childhood trauma or pain, and there's something about that. I think that because at its heart, acting so much like the really good acting is about empathy. And if you've been
absolutely.
through if you've been through some pain yourself, I feel like it increases your capacity for empathy to feel what others feel. Sometimes the point of being overwhelmed by it, and I think some actors do genuinely struggle with that. And I think for many, um, they're actually working some things out, like on the stage or in front of the camera or behind the microphone. Like it's a form of therapy in some ways. I think for many, that they in kind of a so to speak in a relatively safe space where it's like there's some distance from themselves, they're able to work out some things, but in doing so, like they inevitably show so much of themselves and share so much of themselves. And in a way, when you have someone who does it at the level that Kevin does, like it just resonates with you and touches you as a human. I know it has me, like, and like that was really my first Batman. What was Kevin Conroy? Like I did not see the Tim Burton movies when they came out.
Mine
Um,
too.
I think I might have seen a little bit of Adam West prior to the animated series, possibly. But my first real exposure to Batman, where I fell in love with Batman, was the animated series. And yeah, like I've been a fan ever since. Like even though I didn't really get into comic books until I was an adult, like the very first ones I bought when I finally started buying them were Batman comics, Batman graphic novels, Batman comics, and that remains like the bulk of my collection, such as it is Batman. Yeah, there's just something so very human about the pain that he goes through, about the loneliness that he struggles with, the fear of attachment with other people. And I can only imagine, like, having gone through the trauma that Kevin did with having an alcoholic father, an abusive father, just a very unstable home life. I can imagine he probably had to work through a lot of fear when it came to getting close to people. Um, so I imagine he probably drew on a good bit of that in his work as Batman. But yeah, in our final minute here, do you have any final thoughts?
Oh wow, what there's so much that could be said. I don't think we have enough time to say it in. And where do I even start? Um, well, how about this? How about this? We didn't know Kevin personally, but we have our own beliefs. But this is what Kevin said before his death. He said to a fan who had lost their grandmother, um, he just let them know that he believes that people literally have a spirit and the body's just a vessel, and that their loved ones will be with them in spirit always. It sounded like you meant that in a literal way, but um, for those of us mourning Kevin's passing, uh, no matter what you believe, we'll keep his memories alive. He will be with us always, whether you knew him as Batman or if you knew him personally.
All right, friends. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Irreverent Nerds podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at irreverent_nerds, plural. We are on Facebook. Our fan page is simply called The Irreverent Nerds. We're on YouTube, The Irreverent Nerd. And if you go to anchor.fm/irreverent nerd, you can support us for 99 cents a month, $4.99 a month, or $9.99 a month. You can also send us a voice message, which we may include in a future episode. Fellow nerds, until next time, make it so. Engage. Avengers assemble. I'm Batman.